Today we're going to sculpt Urbosa from The Legend of Zelda. After playing Breath of the Wild a while ago, she recently appeared on my Pinterest feed, which inspired me to create my own version of her. As the mighty lightning-wielding leader of her tribe, her design tries to capture those characteristics in physical form. One of those design characteristics being the lightning rod in between her eyes, aka her nose. Because it's one of her main characteristics, it's the first thing that I've added to her face, so that I can build all the other features around it. I wanted to give her pretty big lips and upturned eyes to express her femininity, while also adding a more developed jaw, which I think gives her a more Amazonian look. Now all that's left are her elfish ears, create the basic shape, draw the outer rim, carve into the middle, and oh, I forgot to turn up my sculpting resolution. I was wondering why the sculpt looked so rough. Okay, onto the block out of the body. If you've seen my previous episodes of this series, you probably know that I usually make my characters 7.5 heads tall. But that seemed too small for her, so I made it a whole 8 heads. The blockout phase is not only great to figure out the general proportions, but you can also already determine the body type of the character. As a warrior, she needs a strong body, so I've made the big shapes especially big to make the process of refining the muscles afterwards even easier. Once the body looks good, it is time for her grippers, aka hands. They're basically a body in themselves with how complex they are, but there are a few simple rules that I like to follow to create a pair of acceptable looking hands. First of all, if you put the wrist of your hand on your chin, your fingers will reach all the way up to your forehead. Secondly, the full length of the hand can be divided into 2 parts, one being your fingers and one being the back of your hand, with the knuckles being in the middle. Next up, the middle finger is the longest finger, with the pinky being the shortest and the index and ring finger having about the same length. Number 4, to separate the individual finger bones, you divide the full finger length by 2, and then you divide the upper half by 2 again. Lastly, for the thumb, you can duplicate the middle finger and rotate it outwards by 90 degrees. Then you just attach it to the wrist and you have a thumb. With all that in place and mirror to both sides, the body blockout is finished. Now I can merge all the individual parts together with the remesh modifier and turn this blob puppet into an actual human body. Instead of a supermodel, I wanted to make her more of a bodybuilder because a slim waist won't really help her defend her tribe against the monsters that might try to attack it. There might not be guns in Hyrule, but goddamn, her arms come pretty close to it. I actually think it's easier to sculpt very muscular bodies because the structure is very clearly defined, whereas with more slender bodies there's a whole lot more guesswork happening. But even though this is the point where I define the muscles, I still don't go into too much detail because this body still needs to be cleaned up. So once the whole body has been realistified, it is time to retopologize it. The geometry is way denser than necessary, so to fix that I can use 2 of my clean models, merge them together, and then use my favorite add-on soft wrap to, well, wrap this clean model around my sculpt. I just gotta place these pins in the right spots to make sure the wrapping goes well, and perfect. I'm always amazed at how well this works. Even the long elf ears don't pose too much of a problem. Now to move her into a cool pose, I need to add bones to her body. Another step I don't like doing manually. And why would I if there's a website called Mixamo that can rig my characters automatically? Oh. Well, I guess that's why. Yeah, Mixamo works well for everything except the hands. Usually I have to fix them afterwards myself, which wouldn't be that annoying if it didn't take a whole hour and a half to do so. But at least now she can close her hands properly. For the pose, I found this cool splash shot from League of Legends, which I think works quite well for her as well, making it look like she's towering over you, judging you in your weak, non-thunder wielding existence. Now the only thing that is missing to finish her pose is to fix all the unnatural deformations that this quick but imperfect rig creates. Something that is perfect though is her hairstyle. But before I add the final hair, I like to block it out with another quick sculpt just to make sure that the position and structure looks good before I spend too much time on the final hair to then throw it away because something doesn't look right. With the clay strips brush, I can sketch out the general hair flow, and the mask, inflate and stake hook brush help me create the general shape of the ponytail. Details are not important here, all that matters is that the overall shape looks good in the final shot and I have a good reference for later. With the hair covering her scalp, it is time to cover the rest of her body with some clothes. Unfortunately, sculpting armor doesn't work that well, so I use poly modeling instead. That means moving, scaling, rotating and transforming these individual points, aka vertices, to create all the individual armor pieces. Now that might sound boring, and it is, but it has to be done, so there's no time to shy away from it. Most armor pieces can be created in a few ways, either by directly building them on the surface of the body, by modeling them freely without a guide, basically in mid-air, or by copying geometry of the body. I haven't done that here, but it can be very useful for stuff like gloves. Fortunately, her outfit isn't that complex, but if you want to see how I created a more detailed outfit, make sure to check out the previous episode where I created Irelia from League of Legends. I'll link that one at the end of this video. On top of the basic modeling techniques, I also utilize various different modifiers. These basically modify the object you apply them to. That could be useful if you, for example, want to add thickness to an armor piece or turn this single gold plate into a whole belt. Modeling all this manually would take a very long time, so I prefer using some modifiers to save my time and sanity. After creating all these smaller pieces, I went onto the big ones. The one cloth piece of her outfit is her skirt. Modeling the cloth basically means creating the top edge and then dragging it down to the length of your choice. Afterwards, I apply a multi-res modifier which adds more geometry, allowing me to drape the cloth over her legs. A pose like this would also lead to folds, of course, which I've added with the cloth simulations of the boundary brush and some manual adjustments in sculpt mode. I didn't have much time to spend on the folds, so they don't look as good as they could be, but I think it's good enough. She's looking beautiful, her outfit is looking beautiful, you are looking beautiful. Now the only thing that is not beautiful yet is her hair. And the way I created her hair is quite unique compared to my other characters. First, I'm broadly modeling the hair strands that are coming right out of her head. They don't have to be perfect, they just need to capture the main shape and flow of the hairstyle. Now once I've modeled all the hair strands that lead to the braid, I add the metal hair tie, and in that I add a new hair surface that I can use to create the hair that is part of the actual braid. Sounds pretty complex, but it's basically like attaching extensions to your natural hair. To get the volume that I want, I create multiple big strands that allow me to slowly build the structure of the braid, which is where the hair sculpt comes in handy that I've created before. Her hairstyle actually has two of these braid ties, so I just repeat the same process for the second one as well. Now to make the hairstyle a little bit more natural, I like to duplicate the existing hair and group them into smaller strands that create the second layer. These smaller strands are easy to create but can have a huge impact on the final look, because they add more randomness, which is part of every hairstyle basically. And last but not least, I use the select random function to select a few random hair strands that I can now push out of the main body of hair, creating a few stray hairs and finishing the hairstyle. Now for her eyelashes and eyebrows, I usually just copy them from an old project. That works for her eyelashes, but not for her eyebrows. Luckily, creating eyebrows isn't that hard either. Step 1, add hair to create the shape. Step 2, brush the individual hair strands into the right direction. And step 3, add more hair strands that copy the direction of the already existing strands. With all this in place now, she looks pretty detailed, but we can go even further. For her skin, I can use a skin texture that instantly brings her realism from a 2 to a 12. Slap on some makeup like eyeshadow, eyeliner, and lipstick, and her face is looking beautiful. For the outfit, I can reuse a lot of materials from my previous project, like this gold material or this leather material, and now I can create a few more alternate versions of these materials to cover the rest of the outfit. Last but not least, we have a few custom parts. For those, I can paint a few custom textures to, for example, create the flower pattern on her chest or the engraving on her tiara. Those details might take a bit longer to create, but add so much more intricacy into the whole outfit. And after adding the last bits of detail, Urbosa is fully finished and ready for the final shots. If you've enjoyed this video, you're probably also going to enjoy this one right here. Click the video, sit back, relax, and enjoy another one.